Hello everyone, it's Vikio, and today I'll be showing my most recent Hexeblaumon deck for the EX7 format. And I have been a pretty big fan of just pure source strip just because I think it's really fun to kind of just remove all the sources and kind of just, kind of stun lock the opponent like that. And while it's not the most meta thing, I still think it's a really fun deck to play, and I've been really enjoying it. I think Hexeblaumon is just a really good boss monster. And of course, I'll be showcasing this on DCGO. It's a free application, so if you want to go check it out, just go check out Wongzio's channel. And with that, I just want to say again, thank you for watching my videos. So of course, if you do like them, just like, comment, subscribe, so you guys can stay tuned for my future videos as well. Now let's get into the actual video. And of course, let's start off with the eggs, and I just went full of the Hexeblaumon. I don't know how to pronounce it all that well, but it's the egg from EX7, and it's just when attacking, if your opponent has no Digimon with evolution sources, draw one. And since you do end up stripping quite a bit, I think this is the perfect draw egg for the deck. And of course, you can also still run stuff like Luca and whatnot, but I think this is fine enough. Now let's start off with the rookies, and in this case I was running 2 of the BT5 Bluecomon. This is still pretty nice just because of the fact that you gain memory when you strip a source, and I think that's just really helpful just for when you want to keep tone with your evolutions. And I was only running 2 of the new Digimon. The one was just Ice Clad, and the Inherit is still kind of useful but not the greatest since a lot of your other line has the same Inherit, so it's not so impactful late game, but early game it can be pretty nice. And of course I was running the Hexeblaumon. This is still a really good card just because again, start main phase, trash any source and become unblockable, and within this format I think that can be kind of helpful, and especially just later on when we get more impactful blockers. And the opponent stone is also really nice just because it makes them a little bit worried to touch the stack with Goma, just because again you get free bodies, so they kind of have to either say blanket the board or just kill it twice. And of course you still run the EX7 Bluecomon as well, 4 of it, just because it's your main soldier, and while it does whiff on stuff like Omamon and probably a few other cards here and there, it's still really useful just because again, main soldier for the deck, grabs any Hexeblaumon, grabs any Pilgrimon, grabs any Ice Snow, and we are getting more Ice Snow in BT18 along with EX8, so this will obviously have a little bit more value within those formats as well. Now let's move on to champions, and in this case I was running 3 of the EX3 Pilgrimon. And I think this is really useful just because it trashes any source, and I think the Inherit can also be really insane because it increases evolution sources with Digimon with no sources by 1. So obviously this can screw over some decks if you just strip them completely dry before they get up to the level 6, and obviously it can be kind of annoying in that case. And I only want 1 Soulstreamon just because I think it still can be useful here and there, especially if you just leave it out as a blocker. And the only downside is it doesn't have Ice Clad, but again, just a random blocker can be kind of nice. And I just went full of the EX7 Pilgrimon just because it's still really useful, and it's another really good target to grab off Bluecomon, and the fact that again the Vintage Evolving trash any 2 sources, or trash the bottom 2, and then if your opponent has no Digimon sources, it gets jamming blocker, so that can be really helpful because you can get some early swims with this. And with the new Christ by Digimon, you can unsuspend with a fairly similar cause, but again I'll get to it in a bit. So this can just be a really powerful level 4 to get into early on, get some extra checks, and hopefully get a draw with this guy as well. And just 2 Kumamons just for hype for game, and it's still another card that trashes sources, so it can still be helpful in that sense as well. Now let's move on to the ultimates, and I was only running 4 of the new Christ by Digimon and 4 of the BT5 one. I only did this just because I want to ensure I can get as much damage out, because both these offer plus security attack. Well, the slightly different conditions, both of them still do it, and I like that. And since I did run the original Hexeblaumon, this one doesn't really give anything to the old one, while this one does. So obviously I still ran both of each. And again, this one could unsuspend if your Digimon has, if your opponent has no Digimon with evolution sources. So obviously this pairs up really well with this because you could swing, get jamming blocker, evo to this, restand, and then say if you have Hexeblaumon, if you don't pass on, obviously you could just have blocker on your Hexeblaumon, along with the fact that this also has Ice Glide, so you could, of course, strip sources with this, Digivolve, unsuspend, swing into something else, so that's really nice. And this is just, a, like mass soul strip card, which can be kind of nice, and again, I still run it just for like the extra damage output. And that's, again, pretty much it. And obviously, I won 4 of the new Hexeblaumon. It's one of your main boss monsters, and it's still definitely a fantastic card. It's probably one of the best generic blue megas we have, and I can understand why he's being played in a lot of random blue decks here and there. The Wind Digivolving Trash Any 4 was actually kind of insane. It could pretty much ruin any stacks. And again, the fact to bomb deck tables, I didn't realize until I had to reread it, and I think that's just fantastic as well. And the opponent's turn is also really nice, and again, it makes it really hard for your opponent because you pretty much have to use an option or just say Death Axe or just something else to get off the board. And I only won one of the old Hexeblaumon since, again, this one you want to see most of the time, but this can be still a nice, like side boss monster just in case if you don't have this one. And obviously you really want to see this inherit in comparison to this if you just have this. So that can be kind of sad when you don't have it as much, but it is what it is. But again, you could obviously just choose to run another blue mega, but I still like it just because this one's also at least searchable by your blue command. Now let's just go over the tamers, and of course I was running just 3 Davis. I think this is fine enough just because there's another soldier and you can see it consistently enough to grab basically any piece, and if it pops out security, that's even nicer. And again, it's just more fuel for your Kumamon just in case. And of course I was just running 4 Sword Joe just because I think this is really nice to gain the extra memory, because a lot of your stuff can be kind of costly, especially the fact that Hexeblaumon full cost, so starting your turn with possibly 5 or 7 can be really nice when paired up with the Davis as well. Now let's move on to the options, and then in this case I was running 2 Soi. I think this can be kind of nice just in case if you don't have one of your Hexeblaumons out, you could obviously just use this and try to stop some Rookie Rush and stuff like that, just any other rush decks from trying to swing you out. And it can kind of screw up the opponent, especially if they're at the top end, because usually they don't run a whole lot of level 7, so it can at least stop the level 6 from swinging, so that can be kind of nice. And of course, just more consistency tools, that being 2 copies of Blue Memory Boost, and then 4 copies of Mental Training, and I don't really need to explain them all that much. Now let's go over some recommended cards, and one of the eggs you could also run is Hexeblaumon from BT6. This one is one Evolution Source Trash Draw 1. This is solely really good, so that way you don't have to attack and you can still get some draw power. And the main use case where it wouldn't really be as effective is against Mega Zoo decks and whatnot at late game, but still early on you can get some good draws. Hexeblaumon, I think again that's how you pronounce it, but a small buff if your opponent has no Digimon with Evolution Sources and it's all torn, so I think that's nice. Wanamon for the draw, and then Bukamon just for jamming. You could also run Snow Augur, pretty much same inherit as the Pylodroma from EX3, not much else to explain there. Also Automamon I think can be nice because it can set up a Digimon to be less sources than Hexeblaumon, so they don't start swinging again if they can suspend, so that'd be nice. Then we also have some Jellymons here, just because you could also run a small Jellymon package in your deck, because a lot of them do end up wanting strip choices as well, and I think these 2 are probably your better ones for that. Now moving on to some champions. Of course, Kakumon could be good since you could run Kumamon as well, just for some extra stun factor as well. Gekomon is pretty much the same use case as Automamon, but it's level 4, so obviously you can have some changes in your level 4 lineup. Tesla Jellymon, again, pretty much similar reason, but this one is also kind of nice because when attacking, draw 1, not once per turn, but I can't really think of a way you really unsuspend, but again, similar use case to say just the other Jellymons, and plus it does have the same inherit as this Jellymon as well. And of course, Kakumon could also be really good as well, just because of the inherit and its only when attacking to help stun other random stuff, so it can come and help just in case if you can't get to Hexeblaumon. I also think Hexeblaumon from BT14 could be nice as well, just because this one could also bounce source to level 5, so that could be handy. And this Tesla is also still again pretty nice overall when attacking, can't be dealing in battle for the turn, and that could come up so you can get some early aggression with this and still be able to strip souls. I think the Star Deck Magna could also be a funny choice, simply just because, just randomly de-digivolve, along with the fact that it is another way to strip sources, and it could bounce stuff, along with the fact that, block or armor port, so you could just have a random level 4 just be able to do that. And while it's not as searchable, I think it could just be a little bit funny, even though it's also, full cost as well. Now moving on to some ultimates, you could also run the BT6 Hexeblaumon, just because, again, another trash, when digivolving, along with the fact that, again, it could unsuspend Digimon if your opponent has no Digimon with evolution sources, so that could be kind of nifty, so that way Hexeblaumon could effectively swing for both checks. You could also run the Star Deck 8 Digimon, just because another way to get security +1 if you have 8 or more cards, so it's a little bit less reliant on your opponent having Digimon with no sources and whatnot, so it could be kind of nifty there. Also, the EX3 Price Biology one could be also kind of nice as well, just because it's another stun card and it's a strip card. Subon Ace is here simply just because, again, it's another strip card, and again, very solid ace for the deck, and it's not as searchable, but again, you could also run like Sigma X and stuff if you also want to as well. And Wergoon 1 Ace is also here just because, similar reasons, it doesn't strip sources, but it can stop a Tamer or Digimon from suspending, so that could be kind of nice, and at least it does draw your card as well. Moving on to some megas, I think that BT6 Hexeblaumon could also be nice as a random, like, I'm going to do a huge amount of damage now, especially if you controlled a lot of the game with your Hexeblaumons as well. Now we also have the other megas, one of them being the Reprint Booster Amphimon, and I think this could be nice also if you want more Jellymons. It's just because, when attacking, when digivolving, strip 2 sources from a Digimon, and you bomb deck something, along with the fact that it really benefits from, again, Jellymons, so that way you could just bomb deck him to have deletion protection, and I think that is pretty good overall, and just a really solid mega overall, but again, you mostly want to be running Jellymons for that. Also, the Animon is also really solid, just because, again, you get to strip sources depending on how much source you have, along with the fact that it's blocker naturally, and when opponent's Digimon is trash, unsuspended Digimon, so it can be a double attacker if need be as well. I think that's kind of solid as well. Then we also have Vikemon, obviously really good DDG 2 and can delete Digimon with 1 or less sources. And finally, we also have the Ace Amphimon, similar case to the Reprint Booster, and this one also has the benefit of doing a lot of damage. And the Paladin mode is just another level 7. You could go, unsuspend a whole bunch, strip a lot of sources, and if you can keep tone with it, that's really good, because then you gain the max value out of it. Now moving on to some Tamers, and of course Tommy from BT7 is a really nice inclusion, just because you could also run hybrids and strip 3 for cost 3. I think it's pretty nice. Joe Keo from BT14 is also really solid, helps you gain memory so you can keep tone and try to use any source, so that's good. I also think that the BT9, Mimi, and Joe could also be really solid. While it has nothing to do with soul stripping, I think the fact that you could Ice Clad over something and still get a draw, I think it's also really good. And it's obviously, green and blue, so if you want to run some extra green options like, say, Megadeth, for example, that could be a nice option as well. And I think that Shoto could actually be really fun in the deck as well, simply because you could give your Hexeblaumon blocker, because it doesn't really get that as often as you want it, at least in my experience. So this could be also kind of nice, because again, constantly blocker and you have to deal with Ice Clad, that could be annoying. And of course, we just have some soul strip options. Absolute Blast could strip 1 and then bounce something to the bottom deck. Ice Statue could also strip 3 and also bounce something with no sources to hand. Obviously this is the same case, but this is could be for 5 if you have a blue Tamer out. And of course, the Summon Frost could also become nice for the deck as well, because if you don't strip, then you play a level 4 Ice Node from your hand without paying the cost, and then none of your Digimon or none of your opponent's Digimon can, attack, which is really nice. And this is obviously meant to also really pair with the Sorcery one. And of course, Instant Blizzard, trash the bomb cells of all your opponent's Digimon, and up to 3 of them can attack or block, which can be nice. Blue plugin mostly just to give easier access of jamming, and also unblockable. And Wave of Liability could also be nice if the second effect would mostly just kick in if you have Joe, so obviously you kind of want to run this if you want either of these two as well. And of course, that was pretty much my Hexeblaumon deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. and I think that can be pretty fun. And I think the only downside is that I think Pure Soul Strip just isn't nearly as strong, or at least it wasn't like BT7 where Blue Hybrid was one of the better decks. But again, the deck still has some legs, I think, because of the fact that Hexeblaumon just an insane card, and it kind of puts your opponent on a timer, because if they remove it, it's just really hard to deal with, because not a lot of decks get as many sources as it in the meta, so obviously it can be really annoying to deal with, and you can still output some really good damage, and I think that can do okay, mostly just as a rogue deck if you just want to play Pure Soul Strip. But let me know your thoughts on the deck and kind of like what you like to play in it in the comments below. And if you guys made it this far, again, thank you very much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, so you can tune into my future videos, and see you guys later until my next upload.